of my other laser tutorials like deep engraving aluminum or the video I did on deep engraving steels, then engraving brass isn't going to be too difficult. The difficult part comes in when we try to do any deep engraving on an object that has a tight radius and we want the engraving to wrap around it. The complication here, as you'll see in a bit, has to do with both the tightness of the radius and the fact that we want deep engraving, not just some surface marking or something shallow. With that in mind, I'm going to split this video up into some logical sections so that you can jump around to the ones that most interest you. We will start with the settings associated with doing simple brass or bronze deep engraving. Then we will discuss how those settings have to be modified to work correctly with rotary engraving. And not just rotary engraving, deep rotary engraving on a tight radiused object, also known as rotary engraving on hard mode. While discussing this, I will show you some of the things I tried and how I learned this process, because it is good to understand why the settings and strategy must change for this particular use case. If you want more information about my methods to set up the workpiece accurately for rotary, I'll then do that next. And finally, I will close out with the sad tale of what happened to this project you see being engraved here, why I didn't start this video with a beautiful picture of it fully finished, and why my hatred for OhmTech continues to grow every time I use this machine or I have to talk to them. It's going to be really cool. Bronze, Tandemkross Cthulhu grip frame, Viridian RFX 44 mailbox style red dot sight, all on a custom aluminum mount, all sorts of good stuff going on here. Okay, let's get into it. Here are the settings that I use for deep engraving brass or bronze. They are very simple. We have our deep cutting parameters and then our cleaning parameters as well. Blast away with however many deep engraving passes you need in order to get to the appropriate look and depth, then follow it up with the cleaning path. No need to alternate them with multiple global passes or anything either. For those about to say, hey, those settings are useless without knowing tons of other details, let me repeat the 4 rules of my fiber laser playlist that I repeat every episode. 1, this is not an intro to your laser course. There are tons of those. Go watch them first. This series assumes you know how to operate your fiber laser already. 2, my laser is an OhmTech 50 watt non-JPT 150mm lens fiber laser. You do not have to have the same one for the content to be useful to you. If anything, I recommend you don't get an OhmTech. The machine and dealing with them has been nothing but a headache. 3, you don't even have to have the same size or wattage machine as I do either. Go watch episode 1 in my fiber laser for firearms use cases playlist. I walk you through why and how to do conversions. Then come back and watch this. And finally, 4, other people have helped me learn quickly, and we owe them a debt of gratitude for allowing me to spread their knowledge. Today's settings came mostly from Frag Out Designs. He sells world-class vector art for weapons uses. In case you think brass and bronze are going to react differently, let's dispel that real quick. Here I am engraving a stag's head silhouette into some hobby store brass billet. Here I'm running the exact same path on the bearing bronze that I'm using for the main project we'll see in a minute. As you can see, the results are functionally identical. Just change the number of paths you run on the deep sublayer to effect to whatever depth you want. That was easy. Now let's discuss the really hard part. We are going to try and get these tentacles engraved in a manner that they fully wrap around this bearing bronze tube, which is a Ruger Mark IV compatible upper receiver I made, and it's got about a 1-inch diameter. The first thing we have to do is modify those settings we showed earlier to rid them of any settings that do not work well with rotary. Rotary engravers prefer to work with the scan angle parallel to the axis around which your piece rotates. My axis is set up to rotate about the x-axis, and therefore my scan angle is set to 0 or 180 degrees. If you set yours up to rotate about the y-axis, then use 90 or 270 for this field. And don't forget to turn off that auto rotate option and crosshatch. both of those settings are going to make it so the laser still tries to fire while on an angle other than the singular scan angle you want it to use. We are also going to bump our number of passes down very low to 1 or 2. Don't worry, we will do more, but you can't do more than 1 or 2 at a time if you want to get good results. We will then make the exact same changes to the cleaning sublayer as well as turning off its output for right now. If you're doing this for aluminum or steel or whatever, go through the same process to modify your engraving settings for those materials just like we did here for our brass settings. If you haven't already, go ahead and apply these settings to the layer with your design on it. Now, with our rotary activated in our settings, click the Start button because there are some settings there as well that have a huge impact here on this process. You need to set your object diameter to as close to the real value of your object as possible. Use calipers, be accurate. And then for our split size, we are going to change the value to match the line interval value from our brass deep cutting sublayer settings. Let me repeat. We are going to set the split size to a tiny, tiny value. In the case of this brass engraving, that's 0.03 millimeters. And then we will set our overlap to 0. What this means is we are going to engrave a single line, rotate the same distance as the width of that line, engrave the next line, and repeat. It's almost like how you watch an inkjet printer print a page. We are going to turn off run whole shapes if possible and set this radio button to run all shapes in each slice. This forces the machine to stick to that strategy of engraving the image tiny line by tiny line. When you hit run, it looks like this. Since we set the number of passes to only 1 or 2, it will go through the process pretty quickly. Once finished, if you want to make it deeper, just run the process again, and again, and again until you're happy. If you think back to our settings for engraving on flat objects, we ran 30 crosshatches, which is the equivalent to 60 passes. So yeah, if you're trying to go equally as deep, you may have to hit that run button a few times. But I promise you, it's the best way despite this being fairly manual, and I'll explain why in a bit. But before that, we need to talk about the cleaning sublayer. Remember how we turned that sublayer's output off? That's because it has a different line spacing. For brass engraving, the cleaning line spacing is not 0.03 millimeters, it's 0.07 millimeters. So once we are done with however many passes of deep engraving we needed to get a nice depth, close out of here, go modify your settings to turn the clean sublayer on and the deep sublayer off, go back to the start menu, change your split to now be 0.07 millimeters, and run that once or twice. Done. It should look something like this. I will also note that if you're going to go really deep, I do see slightly better results if I do a cleaning pass every 20 or so runs of the deep engraving pass. I don't know why it helps here, but not on flat engraving. Maybe because of the auto rotate that we can do on flats, but whatever, it does. It adds some more work because you got to bounce back and forth between settings a couple times, but if you want perfection, it's worth it. I do think it is important to understand why you have to do it this way though. So please do stick around to understand why this highly manual process is worthwhile. Basically, it stems from these rotary axes not being continuously turning machines. They rotate into place, fire the laser while still, rotate, repeat. So that split size setting is basically determining how wide of a swath of your curved object surface that laser is going to engrave while pretending it's just a flat surface. The larger the split size, or the tighter the object's radius, the more likely the object is to curve away from the laser over the width of your split size, and thus be at a different focal point to the laser. The larger this change, the more difference you're going to get in cutting ability, and the shapes may get distorted too when they get out of focus. It will cut differently in the center where it's perfectly focused than it will at the edges of your split. Most rotary engraving tutorials don't have this problem because they're teaching you on a tumbler, which has a huge radius and thus a fairly flat surface. And they're also not trying to deep engrave either. They're just trying to remove some paint usually. This is what it looks like if we just ran our standard engraving parameters, no modifications for rotary use, with a 5mm split size like Lightburn defaults to. Do you see those ugly lines? Almost like walls every 5mm? That's your result. Those lines are the result of our focus issues. Well, focus issues and one more thing. The reason we set our number of passes to only 1 or 2 and therefore bite off that manual effort associated with running it over and over again is because that's the only way I've been able to find to tell Lightburn to not run all of the passes on one split before moving to the next one. So even if we have tiny 0.03mm splits, but we're running 30 passes or 30 global passes, Lightburn is going to do all 30 on that one tiny split before rotating and doing all 30 on the next split. This means each new split we're blasting away with a laser right next to a deep chasm on one side and an ever increasingly tall wall on the other. Something about this geometry just doesn't work well with the lasering process. We get much cleaner results by taking the whole image down together in small increments instead. Hence, we run the whole image manually a bunch of times. Then we get results like this, which are way better. Here's that same level of result after sandblasting. If you know a way to make Lightburn automatically cycle through this correctly, please let me know. But I've asked tons of experts and I've tried tons of ideas with no luck. Also, when I say I've tried tons of ideas, trust me, I've tried a ton of ideas. This example here is just some of the tests I did. I tried overlapping split sizes, alternating split sizes, making split sizes not match the line spacing for my settings, making it match multiples of that number, engraving slightly out of focus, both too much and too little. The list goes on and on and on. This was my hardest laser project to date and the hardest video to research for. Most of those options created horribly striated floors on the engraving bottom and or had bad floor color and or barely engraved at all for some reason, so you're never getting deep no matter how many passes you do. The only time I ever got good results was with the process I shared above. Let's talk about setting up the workpiece now. This project was barely shorter than my entire engravable area is long, so I had to jerry-rig my clamp down method for the rotary axis so that I could push it further to the right and use up more space on my laser. You will also see that I have some lines and squares set up on tool layers to help here as well. I set my center line of the design as the center line of my engravable area, which is recommended for any rotary engraving, and use that as my frame so that I could get my axis centered along this line. This also allows me to use features from my workpiece to rotate it forwards and backwards until that line is centered on my object's actual midpoint as well. When it's close enough, click Set 0. Before going any further, it is also good to make sure that your axis is parallel to your laser head. I then used the square box around my drawing, which is the same length as my piece, to again turn on framing with that tool to ensure my piece was correctly positioned left to right. The line was ever so slightly off the right edge, but using a piece of paper, I could see that it was basically right there and good. When done, turn off all your tool layers from output and turn on just your design. Go back to the start menu and hit frame again, where previously we were just hitting frame from our main view. Now it should show you the location it will engrave your design from a rotary perspective. As you cycle through the slices, it will turn the object to give you an idea of where it will engrave that particular slice of the shape. Do understand that slices are for help visualizing location and are not indicative of your split size setting from earlier. What I do here is flip back and forth between the first and last slice, and using a ruler to measure how close both are to known features on my object. For example, I used this flat section on the bottom. I wanted the two slices to be equidistant to that. They were not, so I jogged it back to 0, moved it a tiny bit, set my new 0, and repeated until it was perfectly centered. That's why in the previous steps I said you could use the centerline tool to get close enough, because we came back and perfected the rotational 0 here. My last safeguard to success was to turn my laser's power output setting down to only a few % and run the path. I want it low enough that I could easily sand out any mistake, but strong enough that it at least leaves a faint imprint of my engraving on the surface so that I can rest assured everything is showing up where I want it to. When happy, go ahead and set your power settings back to what they should be and begin blasting. Finally, here is the result of my Ruger pistol project, to which you are now saying, that doesn't look nearly as good as the other examples he's been showing us. Correct, because a horrible tragedy befell my Cthulhu project during engraving. The universe is a cruel mistress. After hours of testing, trials, and research with no issues, when I finally put my actual project onto the laser, shortly into the process, the fourth axis died violently and ruined the engraving. After about 10 runs, each with the number of passes set to 2, the rotary, while returning to 0 to start another round, locked up and made this horrible noise. Not only did I lose my rotational 0 from lost steps on the fourth axis, but it also shook violently enough to rattle itself loose from the hold down method I had to use to place it far off to the right. All this with no cleaning pass either. To say I was devastated is an understatement. I had lost rotational 0, I had lost my center line, I had lost my 0 in the X and Y, I had lost my angular 0 to those axes. In order to line everything back up, I had to get everything zeroed back perfectly, all to a ridiculously small 0.03 millimeter resolution due to my split size. I spent an hour and a half doing that. I ran the lower power test again. It wasn't perfect, it was close enough I said I was going to try. I got about 2 more runs done before the rotary seized up yet again, this time while firing. This time, permanently. It was completely dead and makes that violent shaking and sound anytime you try and make it move any amount now. Omtech has sent a replacement, but I don't have the heart to try and re-zero everything in all of those axes the second time. So this is what it is. It's as good as it's ever going to be, and I'm so angry about that. Couple that with all the other issues I've had with Omtech, and the fact this rotary axis died that spectacularly after probably only 3 hours of actual runtime. Pathetic. I hope you'll join me in a few weeks on my Mark IV compatible build playlist, as opposed to my laser tutorials playlist, of which this video happens to be part of both, and see the finale of this project with glamour shots, shooting, lessons learned, and all that other fun.